Musselman, the head coach of Arkansas here. Coach, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, Coach. Thanks so much for having me on.
Look like you're sitting in your plush office there with all the credentials in the background. You're looking good, man. Looking happy.
Yeah, we've had some good weather. We haven't lost a basketball game. And, I think we're at that time of year where coaches should really, really like being in the gym because you're laying your foundation with schemes both offensively and defensively. So, and there's, again, no pressure of a win or loss within the next 24 hours.
It used to be there's no doubt that's true. But when we used to just start on October 15th, you could literally, the guys would come in, they were so hyped up. You could smell the burn of the rubber, on their new shoes. And that was so cool. It's different now. And with COVID, it's especially different. How are you keeping your guys energized? What are you doing with them? How are you dealing with them every day with all this uncertainty?
Yeah, I think the COVID thing, we've become pretty accustomed to exactly how we're going to try to operate. Wearing the mask when we're not in the gym. All the coaches obviously wearing the mask during the entire practice. And but having said that, this is a grind. It's kind of like the dog days of the off season because you're not into your game prep. But you also got to try to, let your players understand the importance of laying the foundation, doing all the fundamentals. And the one thing that I constantly talk to our staff about is how do we keep the guys from being bored? How do we try to create some excitement so when they walk through the door, they're excited about coming to practice? Because it is, right now, especially when you have some older guys, I think it's a little bit easier for freshmen. But the older guys, the grad transfer guys, they want to get to the games, man.
Yeah.
And so you've got to try to get creative, I think, from a practice standpoint.
I always remember the old baseball teams that not one veteran made it through spring training, but they were ready day one when that first pitch was going. That's the way these grad transfers are, man. They're like, my favorite injury is the one that you can't see. Like, my back is bad. I need to see it bruised, bleeding, swollen, and they are always like, oh, my hamstring's tight or my back, they had all these phantom injuries, man. But when the lights are on, they were ready to go. And you've done a marvelous job with transfers, which leads me to this. I don't know how many people know the full background of your story, Coach, but, you grew up in a coach's family. Your dad was the head coach, small college. Ashland was a killer in small college at Ashland, Ohio. Same league as Walsh College, where Bob Huggins was the coach again. What a great small college league there, right?
Yeah,
and then he went to Minnesota for the big paycheck, which I read online was like $24,000 a year or whatever back then. But, what's funny about the old Gopher coach's children is I see, Jim Dutcher was with the Gophers. And, of course, I grew up in South Dakota. And you went to the University of San Diego. Brian Dutcher is the head coach of San Diego State. How come all the Minnesota coaches' kids run to the Southern Cal? What's up?
We're really smart, Coach. I can tell you that. And I give Coach Dutch at SDSU a hard time all the time because my dad left his father a pretty good basketball team. But it's interesting because the Ashland College thing to go from Ohio to University of Minnesota, it really, my dad was a great marketer. People don't really know that. They had a pregame warm-up at Ashland College. The building was sold out every game. When he went to the University of Minnesota, he had that same pregame warm-up. Guys on unicycles, everybody had to know how to juggle 3 basketballs. Everybody had to know how to spin 2 balls on both fingers. He was way ahead of his time from a marketing standpoint. There was 2 different dance teams that my dad had a big part in putting that together as well. There was music blaring pregame. And to think that all that was happening in the 70s, way, way ahead of his time. And one of the things that he regretted was not taking the Memphis Tams job, which was an ABA team. That was owned by Charlie Finley. And certainly Charlie Finley was known for the Oakland A's owner and was a character and a marketer himself.
Yeah, and as I recall, that was Sweet Georgia Brown, the old Harlem Globetrotters song they performed to, and the whole 18,000 fans a game at the University of Minnesota. Now, this is not 7th. I mean, and they're all clapping in unison while the guys are out there literally on unison. You can see it on YouTube. I'll try and link it. Just an amazing thing. So you got a little bit of that in your blood. And you, of course, start in the CBA. And for those that don't know what the CBA was basically what the G League is now. But it was an independent league. But it was minor league basketball. So I'm sure you were taking charter planes everywhere. But at a young age, you were in Rapid City, South Dakota with the Thrillers. And you hired Flip Saunders? How old were you when you hired Flip Saunders to coach?
Yeah, I was at my first job out of college was selling tickets for the Los Angeles Clippers. I did
No. San Diego Clippers.
No, they were actually the LA Clippers.
Oh, they were?
Yeah, so I was a ball boy for the San Diego Clippers when I was in 7th and 8th grade. Then they moved to LA, so I actually sold tickets for the LA Clippers my first 2 months out of college, and then I ended up being in their player, personnel department and being able to scout local college games. And then I got the GM job of the Rapid City team. And so the first person that I called was Flip Saunders. He was an assistant coach at Tulsa. And Flip came out to where I was living at the time in Manhattan Beach. He slept on the floor for 4 straight days trying to convince me that he and I could have a good partnership in running that Rapid City team. And that first year was wild because Flip's father was a carpenter. We built the offices basically in the Rushmore Plaza Civic Center, hammer, nails, everything. And we had an awesome year. We took the year before we got there, they were 16-38. We took them to 38-16. And then Flip went to lacrosse the next year, and then I took over the coaching duties. But had a great friendship. Obviously, Flip played for my father at the University of Minnesota. And we had an incredibly fun year that one year in Rapid City together.
Well, Flip is a hero to a lot of us younger coaches, so to speak. As you know, you and I are about the same age, but we always looked up to those guys. He was with the Skyforce, I think, for a while too. Dave Yeager, who I coached against when he was a Division II player at Morehead State, couldn't go left. Yeager could not go left. Just sit on that left hand. And but Dave worked his way up to be the head coach. You worked your way up to be a head coach in the NBA. Dave Yeager was a head coach in the NBA. Here's all these guys that were just really, you'd think, oh, your dad's head coach of the Gopher head, that you would just have a golden platter, but you didn't. You had to figure out how to make it work on your own, how to use your dad's intuition on marketing to make it work for yourself too, and really build your own brand after you got out of the NBA. After you left the NBA, did you want to go back to the NBA? Were you excited about going to college? Because you took a couple assistant coaching jobs at Arizona State, TCU, LSU, right?
LSU, yep. I'll tell you, Coach, going a little bit backwards on trying to work your way up, even though your father had a job. It was really interesting because in the first year with the Timberwolves, the inaugural year, I kept calling my dad and saying, "Hey, Dad, training camp's like 3 weeks away. Training camp's 2 weeks away. Are you going to hire me?" He said, "Son, I'm not hiring you. You got to earn your stripes, man." and so he told me that I had to coach more. And so that was my first year coaching the Thrillers. And then the second year he brought me, but he would not hire me without coaching experience. And it was interesting. He taught me a really, valuable lesson at a young age, because I thought I was just going to go with him that inaugural year. And it didn't happen until year 2. But certainly after having an opportunity with Golden State, and then going to Memphis as an assistant with Mike Fratello, and then going back to Sacramento and getting a head job with the Kings, I took off coaching for 3 years, Coach. And I tried to reconnect with my 2 sons, Michael, Matthew. I met my new wife, Danielle. And I remember we were sitting around the dinner table because Flip Saunders had actually offered me a job to come and coach with him and be an assistant with the Timberwolves. And this is the guy that was my idol. I wore the same number that he wore in college. He was an incredibly personality, a guy that you were attracted to be around. And my wife kind of said, "Hey, let's." We had already spent 2 years at Arizona State as an assistant, which was a really humbling experience. And then we made a decision to go join Johnny Jones at LSU. instead of going with Flip and going back to Minnesota. And that was a kind of a career-defining moment for sure to me, because I did not know Coach Jones at all. My wife felt like staying in college would be a new challenge for me. So I did that and then got lucky and got a job. Finally, somebody gave me a chance at Nevada. I had so many interviews, Coach Miles, that I couldn't get a job. I mean, I would send letters. The Campbell job would open, the Campbell Camels. I'd send a letter. I would try to get a phone call with the AD. I had an athletic director fall asleep in an interview, so I didn't do a very good job in that interview. But, it was so hard to get a college head job. And then Doug Newth gave me the opportunity. And really that happened kind of randomly. Doug Newth, the athletic director, was with a Golden State Warriors season ticket holder, Matt White. And Matt sat directly behind the bench when I was coaching Golden State and thought that it would be a good match. And that's kind of how I got my first college head job.
Isn't that amazing how some of that stuff works? And I think that AD that fell asleep was probably breaking training rules at the Final Four or something like that. I
will tell you this, too. The guy that fell asleep is out of a job, nowhere to be found. So sometimes luck happens, too, not getting a job.
Well, what people, I think – so, I was in the Mountain West, of course, for 5 years at Colorado State. You were in the Mountain West for 4 seasons, I believe. And that's a great league. And what I don't think people understand is how good the venues are, the cities. Reno, of course. Mark Fox really had it going. Of course, Trent Johnson had been there immediately before him. He took over for Trent when Trent went to Stanford. And I was so impressed when we went out to get our butts kicked and by the Wolfpack out of Nevada when I was at CSU. It was really, really a cool environment. And you got that thing supercharged.
No, it's so interesting. One of my 5 visits coming out of high school was with Sonny Allen. Sonny Allen had coached at Nevada too, and was the guy that created the number fast break that so many of us have used in the past. And so Coach Allen had it going. And then obviously you mentioned Coach Trent and Mark Fox did an incredible job. But the Mountain West, the thing that I was amazed with is how hard it is to win on the road, because it's hard when you go to Colorado State. It's, Air Force is not an easy place to win at. San Diego State, I mean, people do not understand that building is literally rocking.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of hard venues. To travel, not charter, and to get to Wyoming is really, really difficult. So I thought it was a really challenging league. And now Utah State, their staff's done an incredible job, and they're drawing fans at a high rate, and really, really underrated league, in my opinion, with just some incredibly great coaches.
Yeah, and Boise's had 2 straight NBA draft picks. Oh, by the way, when you look at the Mountain West and now you become a head coach and you go and hit the transfer market hard, right? You just really are. You certainly recruit high school kids too, but you really how I've heard you speak before about assembling a team in a hurry, and you certainly had to go back to your days in the CBA and draw from that as you were putting your teams together.
Yeah, I mean, we took kind of a hybrid, like the CBA, USBL, NBA G League philosophy, and kind of intertwined it with the NBA philosophy of draft picks and free agency. And so we tried to come up with a formula. When we talk in staff meetings, we don't talk about guys being 4 stars or 5 stars. We talk about, is this a lottery level talent? Is this guy a mid-first round? Is this guy a second rounder? Is he just a roster filler? And so that's kind of how we built our roster. We had 2 really good freshmen that first year in Lindsey Drew and Cameron Oliver, which really was the founding 2 pieces, those 2 freshmen. But we went really hard after experienced players in the transfer market. We kind of looked at those guys like they were NBA free agents with a proven track record. We could figure out how the pieces to the puzzle were going to fit much more so than freshmen that are unknowns. And so that's the reason we wanted to get as good as we possibly could quickly, but also have some sustainability along with it. So what a lot of people don't understand is we really did not have a grad transfer until my last year at Nevada. They were all sit-out transfers that we could work, develop their game, so on and so forth. And the Martin twins really, they changed my family's life because they were such great players and such great competitors. And really, I laugh all the time. I didn't get the Arkansas job. Those two dudes really helped me get the Arkansas job.
Yeah, I would have never been a Nebraska coach if not the Mayville State guys and the Southwest Minnesota State guys were so dang good. But, it's interesting, too, when you look at things and how you, got that thing revved up. Certainly talent was one of them. I still say redshirting. I had, I think, 4 guys that were all league in the Big Ten, and they all redshirted. Division I guys that redshirted. The guys that came were immediately eligible. It was just harder. You're acclimating new team, new coach, new system, new school, new friends, all that stuff. That year of sitting out can really help. Coach, you are one of the best follows in Twitter. And in fact, I just have really one question. You coached an invisible game this year with no players. Have you lost your mind throughout the pandemic? Is that what happened?
Yeah, it was pretty close. I coached a practice with no fans and no players. I did a press conference and kind of took some fun at each writer. I would kind of say something about each writer. So practice, game, mock press conference. It started kind of at Nevada. Like what I started doing was promoting other programs. Like before the first football game, I put on a football uniform, return kicks, and put that out. I even did a swimming and diving one at Nevada. Got up on the high dive, which I was petrified.
No Speedo, please.
No Speedo. Okay. No Speedo. Trust me. Board shorts for surfing days.
Right. Yeah, there you are. San Diego.
But, yeah, you know what? I think I just hit a point in my career, Coach, where I just kind of – like what's different from the NBA in college is being a partner with other coaches on campus and going to other sporting events on campus. The NBA is strictly a business. And so I want to have fun if I'm on a college campus, and that's kind of what we do with our social media. If I was coaching the NBA, I probably wouldn't even have a social media.
They wouldn't let you. What I love about it, Coach, is that it just seems like you actually have fun coaching. Is that possible anymore? You can still do that, right? That's true.
I love coaching. I do have fun. I think if you come to our practices, they're disciplined, they're very structured. But we have fun in our pregame. We try to come up with a theme every pregame. We have fun. I might dress up in a costume for the players. Our post games, I hope after a win, they're really fun for the players. But even our pre-practice, we try to have some fun, some type of message on a daily basis that the guys can laugh a little bit.
Yeah, energize your base and your team and antagonize the opponent. That's always great. I'm just saying, whether you like to or not, whether it's intentional or not, it's awesome. Coach, because you've done the transfer thing, you had guys sitting out. Even last year at Arkansas, you were incredibly small, but you've played very short rotations. Jim Molinari, my former assistant, who's now at Oklahoma with Lon, who you worked with with the Atlanta Hawks, always said, play 8, trust 7. And you've done a little bit of that.
I've lived by that, Coach.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. Yeah. And as you've done this, and it's one thing to do it in a mid-major league, but you've also won 20 in a high major league. And it hadn't been for a huge injury last year, you guys certainly would have won more than 20. When you look at the SEC, look at all these guys in the Final Four. You got Ben Holland, who went to 3 at UCLA, and Calipari. And I'm not even going to try and name them all, right?
Well, trust me, my first meeting, I looked around and I was texting my wife and I go, hey, somebody in this group's going to come in last place, man. Because I'm looking around and every coach, I'm sitting next to Tom Crean. Every single guy is a good coach. So it's a challenge, man.
You remember the movie Rounders? And Mike is Rounders says, if you can't find the sucker in the first 30 seconds, you are the sucker. We've been in those meetings. No, that's what happens. So I think you've done a tremendous job, Coach. And, as I get into this, one of the things, as I like to look at is, you NBA guys. So when I was in the Mountain West, Jim Boylan, who just previously the head coach of Chicago Bulls, was an NBA guy. Lonnie Kruger was an NBA guy. And
Jim actually worked with Jim was my assistant in Golden State.
Oh, really? I did not know that. That's awesome.
Yep.
And then Craig Neal had been in the NBA with the Raptors, calling offense. He went with Steve Olford, who's now at Nevada, of course. Those two are. They were in New Mexico.
Craig Neal played for me for parts of 6 years.
I hope you cut him.
No, I never did. He was actually really good.
I know. That's good. Noodle's a great guy, man. He's he's amazing. But you know, the NBA guys were so good when you were like that. I went from NAI Division II, Division I independent, Mountain West. Okay. And all of a sudden you're going against, and the one thing about I think the advantage of an NBA season is if you just count possessions, 24-second shot clock, about 100 possessions a game compared to about 70 or whatever. You get another season and a half, experience. If you just count possessions, an NBA coach gets almost 3 times in every one calendar year, gets about 3 times the possessions as the college guys do. And it makes you sharper and it makes you better. I don't necessarily want the college game to go to a shorter clock. I kind of like the uniqueness of where we're at. But at the same time, as you look at this and you put your own brand on things, you guys do an excellent job of getting threes, making threes, and stopping threes. Now, everybody, if you look at, how you should play basketball, you should be at the rim or outside shooting the three. That's what the numbers tell you, the analytics tell you. You certainly understand that well. I've known that. We just couldn't make the threes. So, that's the way it goes. Then you podcast for a while. So, but when you look at this, I really hope the college game does not become the Houston Rockets, which is, stand, 10, space, and see what we can do. I still love the movement without the basketball, and I think it will because of the longer clock and those things. How do you relate your style of play? How is it different from when you were in the NBA and you come to the college game and now put that into work at Nevada and Arkansas?
Well, you hit on a lot of great points, Coach. I think like the NBA game is also why I've had a smaller rotation, because I've always felt, you're only playing 2 games a week in college. In the NBA, you're playing 3 or 4. The 48-minute game compared to a 40-minute game is a huge difference when you're talking about multiple games during a week. And then you talk about 82 games as opposed to 30 games. So that's why I felt like from a rotation standpoint, and oh, by the way, you don't have a 35-year-old veteran. You're dealing with younger people and people that are used to playing 7 games in one day in an AAU tournament. So that's why I felt like the rotations with mainly college media was way overblown. And so that's why we came up with the formula, and the people that I worked for. My dad had a small rotation. One of my best friends is Tom Thibodeau. We all know what his rotation looks like. So that was kind of how I formulated. I felt like, and I still kind of feel like, if your best player is tired and taking a shot, that's still better than your 8th man who's fresh taking a shot. And that's just I think that's kind of bred from your NBA, background. But the NBA coaching you mentioned, it is so good. I think that the world's greatest coaches are in the NBA because of the experience and for so many factors. But, what we've tried to do is we've tried to take all of our practice plans from the NBA, the way that we do offense, defense, constantly tweaking based on analytics and so on and so forth. But you also have to do what your roster's good at. And so last year we had a guy, Jimmy Witt, who was one of the best mid-range shooters in all of college basketball. So we let him do that. We let him play his game. We let him do his thing because that's what he was good at. We didn't try to force him into layups or threes because he was so good at that 12 to 15 foot. But we do take a lot of threes. We led the nation in defending the 3 last year because we put a high priority on it. We knew we were going to get our butts kicked on the glass.
Yeah, and that's what people don't understand. There's got to be give and take. You can't take away everything. So when you're that stretched, and especially now you're longer this year, so that should naturally help the rebounding. You're still going to be weak somewhere. And your idea of taking away the three and maybe giving up a couple extra possessions, if it's still only one or two at a time, not three at a time, it's still more effective defense.
No question. I think the big thing is, like, for what I've tried to do every year is come up with an identity. Like, who are we? And try to do that as good as anybody in the country, whatever that may be. It might be, one year it was try to outscore people from three. Other years it's been defend the three. It might be try to be the best pick and roll defensive team in the country. I don't know what we're going to be able to try to hang our hat on this year, because we're still trying to figure that out. But I think, especially for first-time head coaches, or even for assistant coaches, they want to be masters of all, and you can't be. You've really got to focus on one or two things and be great at that and master those to give yourself a chance to win.
Every year we had a big season as a Division I coach. We won the three-point line. We guarded it better, and we shot it better. One year I think we got fourth in the Big Ten. And if you looked at our stats and Michigan State stats, they're almost identical except for offensive efficiency, which came down to we shot 34% from the three. They shot 42%, and they just murdered us. Like, we could handle the ball well. Didn't matter. Like, our turnovers were like 8 turnovers in a game. Doesn't matter. I mean, if you're going to shoot and miss, your assists are down. Everything's down. And so shooting is a premium. Basketball is a game of skill, and you've really done that well. And you have built your brand. Like, I just have like one real question. Who is your favorite team, the Arkansas Razorbacks or the Savannah Bananas?
I know I like both logos. Both logos are awesome. My favorite team's still the Razorbacks, but I got a lot of minor league teams that I'm enjoying donning their mask and T-shirt.
Folks, if you get a chance, get on Coach Musselman's Twitter feed. And every week you have a different theme, or every day? I don't know what it is.
Every day we have a different theme, yep.
Yeah, so he's got a mask and a T-shirt and shorts on of the Seattle Seahawks or the Savannah Bananas, was the actual team, and we have there was one I mistakenly, right when I got here, we have the Salt Dogs here in town for a minor league baseball team. I call them the Corn Dogs, because I thought, sure, it's got to be the Corn Dogs, and it wasn't. So they weren't too happy with me. Charlie Meyer sent me a nice note, but anyhow, he's the GM of that team. But at the end of the day, I still got to throw the first pitch, threw it in the dirt.
No strike, Coach.
So when I threw for the Huskers, I threw a strike, a little high, got him off the plate, but it was a high strike. And then no, I did not do a good job. I had my son out with me, and we were going to try a bit. So okay. You know what a bit is, right? You try and do something. So my son and I said, okay, Gabe was like 8 or whatever it was. He's 16 now, so he might have been 8 or 9. I said, here's what we're going to do. The Salt Dog is going to, I'm going to throw a pitch, and the Salt Dog is going to call a ball. So then I want you to throw your ball and bean the Salt Dog, okay? So he's like, well, I'm not sure, And so, sure enough, I throw my pitch. It's a ball, but the Salt Dog comes walking way out. So the guy gets to about 6 feet, and my son just winds up, whap, drills him. So the bit was, once you drill him, he's going to chase you down and beat you up, right? Well, the Salt Dog couldn't catch him, and he didn't let the Salt Dog. So it was just the worst bit, right? So it's a early season. Couple hundred fans in the, not a lot of people there. So my son, 8 or 9, right? Like a month before, I had had a car accident, and I was not paying attention, rear-ended somebody, and that was all resolved. Nobody got hurt, thank goodness. But it was in USA Today that I got fined $100. I mean, it was in every paper, and it was like a slow news day or whatever. So we're driving home, and my son says, "Is that going to be in USA Today?" That's going to be embarrassing. All my friends are going to hate me. We're not going to. And he was just I said, son, it's a bit. Some bits work, some don't. I think and so he'd come up 8 o'clock, anything on Twitter, 9 o'clock, anything on 10 o'clock, is anything on the news. So once we escaped the day, he knew it was okay to fail at a bit. So hopefully I'm passing to my son what your dad passes to you, which is sometimes you have to have the courage to do the bit, man.
No question. You have to.
Well, Coach, listen. This has been awesome. I still have 8 more things I haven't even asked you about. You're such a fascinating guy. Good luck to you. One thing I'd like to do is you've got an outstanding staff. Tell me about your
Yeah.
your 3 main. First of all, you can't even name everybody on your auxiliary staff. You have no idea. He's got like 22 support staff guys, folks. And the reason he didn't go back to the NBA was because he wanted to wear a polo and nice, easy going. He didn't want to have to wear that uncomfortable suit. Yeah,
that's true. I hate the suits, but we got we got an awesome staff, Coach. We really do.
Tell me about him.
Yeah, so Corey Williams was a head coach at Stetson. Since I've been a head coach in college, I always want to have at least one, guy on staff that's been a head coach. And Coach Williams played in the NBA with the Bulls when they won it all. And so I love the fact that he played in the NBA, was a head coach in college, and then was an assistant at a high level at Florida State. And then David Patrick, who just joined us this year, is a really, really, really dear friend. I know he's a great friend of yours as well. And Coach Patrick was the head coach at UC Riverside and really had that thing cooking. I mean, they were really trajectorying up. My wife's good friends with Cassie, his wife, so that helped as well. My daughter Mariah's friends with his daughter, Maddie, so that helped us a lot recruit Coach Patrick here. And he's recruited at a high level, but he's an incredible coach on the floor. And then Clay Moser's been with me at so many different stops. He was with me in Sacramento with the Kings, with Golden State. He was with me in Dominican Republic with the DR national team. Clay's
9 years with the Lakers.
With the Lakers, when actually Clay and I went to the Lakers as their D-League coaching staff, and then I didn't get called up, but Clay got called up to the Lakers. So, but yeah, he ran the analytics department with the Lakers, and I don't know, Coach, can we call these guys in?
I got to get these guys in here. Bring them in. I got to talk to the brains.
Let me go grab them real quick, Coach.
Let's go. Folks, we're back with the Razorbacks. We've got David Patrick and Clay Moser, 2 guys that I've known for a lifetime. Guys, welcome to the Mind of Miles.
Thanks for having us, Tim. Thank you.
Was that a chuckle, DP? Was that a chuckle?
It's a chuckle because I text you damn near every day. So it's a chuckle.
So you know what's inside the Mind of Miles. Guys, I've known Clay Moser since I was an assistant in Northern State in Aberdeen, South Dakota. When he was we've already briefly talked about him with Coach Musselman, but your upbringing in the CBA and the minor leagues of basketball, truly, you were with the Skyforce, but your first big break was with Jimmy Valvano. And how does Jimmy Valvano hire a guy that's born in Nebraska?
That's a great question. I thought it was a smart hire when I got hired, and as I look back at it over the course of my career, I realized there was 1,000 guys he should have hired other than me. But he and I just we clicked, and I filled a need for him that he needed, and those are days I cherish very, very fondly.
And David Patrick, folks, of course, he started played at Syracuse for Jim Boeheim first season, right? You guys go to the Final Four that year?
Yes, sir. Went to the national championship and lost to Kentucky eventually.
And then Louisiana Lafayette after that. Looking
Correct.
for more minutes, I'm guessing.
Yes, of course. And warmer weather.
Warmer weather, yes. I guess
It was one of the early transfers, man.
Yeah, exactly. So it's amazing. I had Fran McCaffrey on my first show, and there were 7 teams in the ACC when he transferred back to Penn. And DP, that reminds me of the Motley Crue when Jeff Van Gundy told us he transferred from Harvard to Menlo Junior College out in California. I've never heard anybody like that in my life. So DP, you started coaching. You, of course, now grew up in Melbourne, Australia after being born in Bermuda. And then you decided to come to the U.S. and work there. What was that movement like when you came to high school from Melbourne?
Look, it was different. I went to high school in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, back in 93 now. And when I look back at it, it was my chance and opportunity to try to get recruited to college. There was no YouTube, no Twitter. My VCR tapes that would take 4 weeks to get over here to try to send to college coaches. And so my best chance was to come here and play in high school, which I was able to do in Baton Rouge. And I was fortunate enough to get recruited by a lot of schools and ended up at Syracuse, for my college career.
And how did Baton Rouge become the place?
There's a guy named Eddie Palubinskas. He was the first Australian ever drafted in the NBA, and he played at LSU. And he asked me to come over, first of all, to go to his high school, and that's how I ended up in Baton Rouge. So a small world that there was an Australian already living in Baton Rouge that happened to play at LSU, and that's how I ended up on this side of the world.
Clay, your first experience with Eric Musselman was where? How? Why?
He was the head coach of the Rapid City Thrillers, and I was an assistant coach of the Sioux Falls Skyforce, under a gentleman by the name of Ron Ecker. And Rapid City had been established in there for, I don't remember exactly, but they'd been in Rapid City for 2, maybe 3 years, and we opened at home, so it was a cross-state rivalry. We played in the Sioux Falls Arena, the updated Sioux Falls Arena.
And both places would sell out for your games. This is not.
Yeah, the CBA was. I mean, the Skyforce is still there, for goodness sake.
Yeah.
I mean, after all these years, I was there from their. I was there as an expansion franchise, and so Rapid City came to our place to open the place up. We sold it out, and I don't know how Muss remembers it, but he and I had some words at half court about something because Ron was, I don't know what Ron was doing, but I was mad about something. Muss was mad about something. So that's my first interaction. Then we didn't really. Then we just kind of were around each other for periods of time because you played so many games in the CBA, and oftentimes because of travel, you end up playing the same team a lot to keep down travel expenses. So we ended up seeing each other a lot, and I think he looks fondly on me because I used to beat the dog out of us. So it was almost a guaranteed win when Rapid City played Sioux Falls.
A lot of different ways to get a job.
Yeah, well, yeah, that one wasn't pleasant.
Yeah, DP, so you were an assistant coach. You end up from Nicholls State. You end up going to St. Mary's, really helping Randy Bennett establish that Australian pipeline. Were you the first guy to really do that? Yeah, do you think, or were there other guys bringing Australia? Occasionally we'd see an Aussie, but really not a lot.
There wasn't a lot. Coach Giacoletti had brought Andrew Bogut over to Utah. So
I think Rick Majerus might have pulled that off.
And Rick kind of, it helps having Coach Majerus, rest in peace, being the coach there. So they dabbled with it. And Coach Bennett had one Australian prior to me getting there named Daniel Kicker. And then after I got there, kind of the floodgates somewhat opened. It kind of became the in vogue thing. But it helps when you get a Patty Mills, a Matt Dellavedova to kind of open up that channel.
Yeah, a couple NBA guys will start your career off right. So DP, you scout in the NBA. Clay's done that. Clay's been an assistant in the NBA. There are probably not many jobs you haven't had in the NBA, Clay.
That's that, except the very, very top ones.
It's and now you guys are both in college, and when you look at things, and DP, you were a sitting head coach, okay, and those jobs, you look at it and they're hard to give up, but you chose to, and that's a hard decision to make. Talk to us about making that move and the emotion of doing that. And certainly you probably wouldn't have done it if you didn't have a close tie with Eric already.
Well, you hit the nail on the head. I wouldn't have done it if it wasn't for Coach Musselman. And, me and Eric relationship goes back to my days at St. Mary's. And I looked up to him when he was a head coach at the Warriors and at the Kings. But, we're kind of in the same coaching tree. He played for Coach Egan, who Coach Bennett worked under. And so our paths crossed as when Muss was making his transition out of coaching for those couple of years. I spent every day that I could with him when he'd come up to campus and pick his brain. And so when this opportunity arose and he called about possibly coming to join him, I saw it as not only a chance of working with a friend, but a chance to continue to grow as a coach. And ultimately I want to be like him and coach at this level one day. And what better place to be than at the University of Arkansas with a friend that you look up to. So that's why I made the jump.
Well, you did an excellent job flipping Riverside. And I would tell you, and you don't have to say a word, but with this pandemic and the strain it's going to put on a lot of smaller colleges like that. I can see the wisdom in making the move to a place like Arkansas, and that's really important. But what is it like to have 3 former head coaches, Clay, and now a head coach that you're talking to? You've been a head coach, I've known you for, like I say, you and I have stayed in touch for 20 plus years. And is it hard not to get stubborn about, your point of view and open your mind up to that? Or how do you guys come to a consensus, or is it okay to disagree?
Well, I think it's always, it's always okay to disagree, but we're all grown men, and we realize that Eric runs the show, and we're just here to support him and to advise him when needed, and he doesn't need all that much advising, frankly, but when he does, we're here to try and do that. And at the end of the day, he's the one that makes the decisions, and everybody understands that. And when we walk out of the door, regardless whether you disagreed or however you got to a particular decision or a strategy or philosophy or how you're going to walk out onto the floor with the players, you're all in unison. And that's just the way it's got to be. And I don't know how you built your staffs, Tim, but it's also, I don't think it's, and Eric doesn't want that. Eric doesn't want a bunch of yes men, and, he wants guys that have ideas but you have to have sound reasoning behind those ideas. And you've got to be able to have a plan to be able to execute those ideas if it's your idea that is chosen to go forward with. So that's really what it is. I mean, Corey's incredible, DP and Mus. Like it'd been 30 years since I'd been in major college basketball. So my information is, admittedly and clearly outdated. The recruiting process is a little different than it was when I left. So it's been an invigoration for me at a kind of a ripe old age of 58 to be learning again, but it keeps you going every day.
But you're a young 58.
I don't know exactly what that means, Tim, but I'll accept it.
It means you haven't put down your glasses yet to show how thick those reading glasses are.
I can if you'd like.
Oh, yes.
I usually just forget they're up there.
Yeah, or forget them everywhere, like my sister who's 58 does.
I actually invested in about a dozen once a year, just lay them around everywhere.
Yeah. I mean, they have the little rope around them now. Have you seen the ones that, but they disconnect right at the bridge?
Yeah. I can't do that yet.
That's my Christmas present for him, Timmy.
I think CVS has got a little special on them right now, so you better hustle. So
I'm
lastly,
home, I'm gonna have one of those gold ones.
I like that. That's nice. That's good.
I know something good like that.
Lastly, it's interesting that Clay brings up recruiting. Obviously you don't have a godsend named Ben Simmons to bring to the table, DP. You do have a wealth of contacts. Oceania FIBA basketball is getting better and better and better. You've seen New Zealand make the Olympics. You've seen Australia make deeper runs in the Olympics, and you're working with the Australian national team. How are those things going for you right now?
Look, I think obviously the pandemic we had the Olympics, which are now pushed back to next year. So that's affected not only here in America, but the rest of the world, as we've all seen. But I think there's certain guys, that can definitely play in our league here in the SEC, and not just play, but help us off the bat. I can't verbally comment about who we have coming, but we have somebody from that side of the world coming, hopefully, on Wednesday on signing day. But the good thing about Arkansas, Timmy, as you know, is there's so many great players here in the state. There's so many great players in the region when you talk about Louisiana, Texas, Oklahoma, and Missouri, which are right here. And so you have great players, built-in players here. But definitely coach is open to using that bridge over to Australia where they fit in. But it's an exciting time to be in the SEC and be a Razorback. Guys, thanks for coming on. I appreciate you. Hopefully we had a great show, and I always look at the strength of a program, and I look at that coaching staff, and we played Stetson when I was at Nebraska, so I've gone against Corey's team, and I've seen you guys in action, and really excited to see how this thing develops over the course of this year, and of course in the near future. I think Arkansas is really going to take off and have big runs in the NCAA. It'll be a lot of fun
to watch that SEC develop.
Hey, Tim, can I flip the script and ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
Are you so bored you have your Christmas tree up already?
Just this is only one of 4.
I wondered the same thing.
It's like, what? Haven't you skipped the holiday in here? Isn't that the day after Thanksgiving program?
It's like a Charlie Brown's just awful tree.
I love it.
Leaning against the door.
Do you ever take that Christmas tree down, or is it up 12 months?
My wife just put it up, and I think she did it just with me, And thanks for bringing that up, Clay. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, I've been fixated on it the whole time.
I'm surprised we didn't get this. All right, boys. Love you. Thank you.
Thanks, Coach.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, we're back with Inside the Mind of Miles. I'm with my co-host, Gregory Eaton. How you doing, E-Sauce?
I'm good, Coach. I'm good. That's bringing up an old name right there. Chin Coleman.
You know why? Because Brad Underwood's going to be my guest next week.
Oh, boy. That'll be a good one.
Yeah. How about Coach Musselman, man? That guy can go.
A lot of high energy, and you can definitely tell that they're getting things going at Arkansas really, really well. Tremendous defense and a great recruiting class coming in this year.
Yeah, no doubt. And, when you look at him and the staff he put together, we got to meet David Patrick, Clay Moser, our guys I've known for a long time. Really, really a good bunch of guys. And it's fun to see those veteran guys and how all those connections interweave over the course of time. So a fun podcast. Hopefully people enjoyed it. And another big week coming up though, the Masters.
Oh yeah, that's a big one. And I know you have a lot of experience at Augusta yourself.
I
don't know
do.
if you have stories.
Fortunate that Harold Anderson, a member at the time, former publisher of the Omaha World Herald, and Ton Ostegard invited me to play, and I got a chance to play a couple different years, probably 6 different rounds. And it's so cool when you play those types of courses because you're so familiar with it on TV, that it feels like you've already been there,
Mm-hmm.
And I swear to goodness, it feels like you play the back 9.5 hour. And my claim to fame is this. I made a few pars out there, and I shot an okay score. My very last round was 85, and I was happy with that.
That's impressive.
So yeah, that's exactly. So when we look at things, my first time out there, Rays Creek on 12 kind of runs away from you, and the creek gets more like a river as it goes to your right. So Jack Nicklaus always said, no matter what, especially on Sunday, if the pin's over on the right, you want to always hit a little fade, a little cut over the left side of the bunker because it's a very thin green. It's kind of a kidney-shaped one, and it's long this way, wide, whatever. Not north and south. So you don't have much. You can hit it right in the front third of the green. It still runs off to the back. So one of the times, though, I finally got that down my last 3 or 4 rounds, but my first 2 I struggled with, and I hit a little fade or slice. And what happens is you're in amen corner, and the caddies will tell you, like, the wind will be swirling. You'll hear the announcers talk about where's the wind coming from, and the caddies will say, look at the clouds, and the ball will follow the clouds. And if you're lucky enough to have a few low-lying clouds, you'll see the clouds, moving this way, but the trees are moving that way, and you hit it, and it goes with the wind, with the direction of the clouds. So that'll be something to keep an eye on. And but just so you know, Jordan Spieth and I, who's a former champion, have something exactly in common, which was I hit one in the creek, and I walked over by the 13 tee box and took my club length and dropped it, or the direction, and dropped it. And then basically chili dipped it right into the water. And Jordan Spieth did that like 3 years ago. And I told my wife, I said, oh, that is so thick over there. And it doesn't look thick because Augusta doesn't have much rough naturally. Mm-hmm. And so Jordan Spieth and I both basically hit chili dips into Rays Creek twice. And that's my claim to fame on that, Greg. But I have a bigger question. What hat are you wearing?
It is the Pawtucket Red Sox, AAA for the Boston Red Sox, where I was fortunate enough to work for 2 years.
With Pawtucket or Boston?
Pawtucket.
Yeah, so you're a AAA guy. You
I'm a
like those minor league teams, don't you?
Oh, I love the minor league teams and the minor league stadiums. A lot more character than the big names.
And you go to some games over in Omaha with your wife too, right?
Yes, and actually one of our years, before the 15-16 year, my wife and I did a road trip in Iowa, and we went to 4 minor league games in Iowa in 4 days.
I don't think he told me about that trip. So that's Pawtucket. Do you have a collection of those hats?
I do, and I think I'll wear a different one each week, so you can see
yeah.
different places I've been.
I like that. I like that a lot. And maybe we'll give folks a chance to guess what they are and stuff like that too. You never know. That might be good. But we had a great show. We're looking forward to another big week. And we missed our open this week, Coach E, because you were busy working. What's going on with that? I mean, come on.
I know. I think people are more excited to hear Coach Musselman talk. I know I didn't get a chance to say it. I was actually a graduate assistant at Arkansas for 1 year. So
under John Pelfrey, right?
Under John Pelfrey, yes. And Bud Walton is a tremendous place to catch a basketball game. If you haven't had a chance to go to a game there, it's one of the toughest places to play in the country. And it's kind of like you can look at your schedule and say we're going to win these games, regardless who you have on the schedule. So
that's pretty cool. Yeah, that's a great environment. It was rocking last year. I remember their Kentucky game, and they had other games too, but I remember seeing I think it was a CBS game, and it was rolling, man. It was good stuff. So, ladies and gentlemen, Coach Eaton, man, thanks for joining us with that Pawtucket Red Sox hat, and we're looking forward to more of Inside the Mind of Miles coming up next week. Enjoy this week's episode. I hope you enjoyed it a great deal. Remember to subscribe, rate, review. We are a 5-star rating only, just so you know. We don't accept anything less than 5 because we're the world's greatest in the history of mankind podcast. Thank you very much. Thanks for having us, Coach E. We'll see you later, buddy.
See you, Coach.